We have a ton to talk about tonight. First, though, we want to get to what we've seen now for weeks. Gas prices hitting more than $5 a gallon here in western New York last month, and since then kind of been inching down. You've probably noticed, not as high as they used to be. AAA says now the average price for a regular gallon of unleaded in the Buffalo area is $4.53. That's 31 cents cheaper than this time last month and 37 cents lower than the recorded high that we hit on June 12th. And while the decrease is significant, gas is still way more expensive than a year ago when it was barely over $3 a gallon. Now, the largest oil companies were in the headlines today because while we're seeing prices continue to fall, even though they're sky high, so are these profits. Today, Exxon reported $7.85 billion in profit during just the second quarter. Chevron saw record profits at $11.6 billion, and Shell hit it big as well, $11.5 billion in profit. And joining us now to talk about all this is Valerie Puma with AAA of Western and Central New York. Great to have you on. We appreciate it on a Friday. We just went over there some of the kind of significant drop in prices that we've seen nationwide. Also, not quite as big of a drop here locally, but we are down 38 cents a gallon from our all-time high back in June. Patrick DeHaan with Gas Buddy recently tweeted that wholesale prices are down almost $1 nationwide, wholesale being mostly what they're paying for the gas before it gets ready to be sold to us. I think a lot of people are wondering, shouldn't we be seeing even more relief at the pump at this point than we are right now? What do you make of that?
So what we have been seeing recently is that steady drop in pump prices since about the end of June, mostly due to fluctuating crude oil prices, since crude oil actually makes up, just over half of what you're going to be paying at the pump. And when it kind of comes to, those prices there, a lot of it, what we've been seeing is it's mostly the supply and the demand. The crude oil, back in spring when prices were really, really high, a barrel of crude oil was $120. And now we've seen it's kind of dipped even below $100 per barrel. So that's really been helping with the prices there. And according to new data from the Energy Information Administration, gas demand did increase a little bit last week, but demand was still much lower than it was a year ago. So, with that lower demand, even just a couple of weeks ago, as we kind of got into the middle of the summer, fewer people were traveling a lot during the week. That was really helpful in increasing the inventory that we had for gasoline overall. We actually could be seeing a little bit of higher prices coming soon just because there was a little bit of a peak in gas demand last week, just even since last Friday. And the demand was still lower than a year ago, but that could pressure pump prices to maybe slow the price decreases that we have been seeing if demand were to continue to pick back up. So it might be something that, we've been seeing fluctuating prices for the past couple of months, and that could be something that we continue to see throughout the summer.
Yeah, prices still remain incredibly high compared to even just a year ago. Well over $1 more than where we were, but we've been on sort of a good trend, more than a month, prices going down, the averages every single day. But you kind of touched on it a little bit there, the projection moving forward. Even if we see a little bit of fluctuation in the short term, what is sort of the forecast for fuel prices as we head, into the fall and later this year?
So I believe basically what we've been seeing is very much dependent on not only the inventory of the gasoline that we have in stock, but how much people are using this gas. So with longer weekends like Memorial Day holiday, 4th of July, and maybe even Labor Day coming up in September, those weekends we might see a spike just because so many people are going to be gassing up to really enjoy that 3-day weekend, get out of town for a little bit. So with those weekends coming and going, that might be a reason alone to have more fluctuation right there. Going into the fall, if we kind of stay where we're at with the crude oil prices, we kind of hit that plateau. That would be great to continue to be below $100 per barrel. If we were to stay right there, as people, stop traveling at the end of the summer, can kind of go back to school, we could possibly see gas prices, steady, maybe even see those prices drop down a little bit more. But it is there's so many variables with how much people are traveling and gassing up, and if those crude oil prices are going to stay where they're at, or if things might change in the coming months.
We mentioned off the top of the show the oil company profits that were just reported, and obviously that can be annoying, maybe even enraging to some people watching when you talk about such massive profits while so many families are struggling. High fuel prices, of course, lead to higher prices for everything else, right, because of transportation. And so inflation is this thing that is so top of mind for so many people. The oil industry, though, will tell you that, back during the early days of the pandemic, prices plummeted and they made no money. So how do you explain these massive profits to our viewers and when people get pretty angry when they see that?
So I personally am no expert in the oil companies themselves, but what I have been able to see just even in the past couple of months is it does really have to go with the supply and demand. And even back in February, when, political tensions between Russia and Ukraine and everything that was kind of happening there, even getting the oil was more difficult. Getting it from the European over to the States, that was a little pricier. So there's so many different factors that go into it. I'm definitely no expert in that field alone, but it is hard to see some of those profits and just kind of seeing, how much people have been paying at the pump. So I'm hoping that even just in the next couple of weeks, we can see things a little bit, some relief at the pump for all of our motorists and everybody at home who is hoping to be able to travel this summer and be able to fill up their car and not be scared to see what that price is at the pump.
Valerie Puma with AAA of Western and Central New York. Thanks so much for sharing some of your Friday with us. It's good to see you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me.